Mate, brilliant series. So what was it
Thank you,
like
man.
to play Michael Ibrahim in Last King of the Cross?
Amazing. So much fun. Such a challenge. Yeah, I mean, just being able to delve into that world. I was with you. I binge watched season 1 before anything came on my radar because I had some friends that were in the show, Lincoln, Claude. I was just watching it because I have so many talented friends that were involved with the first season. So I had a vested interest in just watching that. And then I remember it got to episode 10 because the first season was 10 episodes, and I got to the end of that episode and I was like, fuck, I really want to know what happens next. I want to see season 2. And it was just crazy to think that the next episode was going to be involving me. But that was way back before I'd done any acting stuff, because Last King of the Cross was my first thing ever. Like with
That's
acting,
pretty
it was my
wild.
first audition, first everything. So, I mean, it was so fun playing the role. It was a tall task though, just to overcome feelings of, can I do this? Because when your first gig is on a scale like that, telling a story that has so much relevance in, Sydney culture and such a prolific family, and on top of that, having John, the executive producer, the show being about him and his family, and then you're playing his brother and he's pretty much handpicked you to play that role. There's responsibility that comes with it, but you either step up or you don't. So I was just kind of like having to stifle any feelings of doubt and just fucking go all in, and I had so much fun going all in.
Okay, so how do you get the call up to go and be involved in season 2?
Well, now I know like the full behind the scenes story, and I won't try and drag it out too much, but it all comes back down to the comedy stuff. So we put out a video that Michael Bublé saw, and it got some attention. And
Which one was this?
so it was like one of the first videos we put out when we like relaunched Granny Flat, because we've been doing Granny Flat for like 7 years technically, but we've only been doing it consistently as like, a brand on social media for 2. And we made 10 sketches in our first slate. We called it Granny Flat Season 1, and the second one we put out was it was basically just a piss take out of different Australian radio stations. And then the last station that we land on is Smooth FM, and then a Michael Bublé song comes on and we're dissing it. We're like, oh, this is a shit song. And then we start singing along to it. And then we do that thing where we jump out of the car, we do a dance. And we didn't have any followers on TikTok at the time. And I was like, oh, this sketch is probably a bit long to put on TikTok, but I might put the dance scene on TikTok because people like dancing on TikTok. So I uploaded that, and then it started to get a little bit of traction. And at like 1 a.m., Michael Bublé commented on it, wrote fucking glorious. And I'm like losing my shit. I'm trying to call the boys and they're not answering because the next day we had a shoot at 6 a.m. So I didn't get a wink of sleep that night. And then the next day we got a message from him inviting us to his Sydney show, because he just so happened to be in Sydney at the exact same time. This is where like fate,
Bit of divine intervention.
yeah, dude, big time. And invites us to his show. We go to his show. We met him, and he put our skit on the big screen at his Sydney concert at Kudos Bank Arena. And that was the second sketch that we'd put out as soon as we relaunched. Now, to bring it back to getting into Last King, that caught the attention of a writer on the show, and at the time they were like in the early stages of casting and developing season 2. That writer sent it to the producer, so I was on their radar, and they kind of kept an eye on just the comedy stuff. And then I was just doing my day job one day, and I got a call from Lincoln, and Lincoln said, hey dude, if you're interested, there's some people here that are kind of eyeing you off as a potential candidate to lay down an audition for the role of Michael, who plays John Ibrahim's brother in the show, or who's John Ibrahim's brother. And Lincoln plays John in the show, and I was going to be auditioning for that. He was like, would you like to audition? And I was like, yeah. Like, I'd never auditioned for anything before. I didn't have an agent, hadn't done acting classes. All my acting was just learned through Granny Flat. So I was like, yeah, I'd be dumb to turn that down. It sounds exciting. And so I got put in touch with the casting director, and I put down the audition and sent it over, waited a couple weeks, and didn't hear anything. And then they came back and they're like, oh, we like you, but you look a bit too old for the character, because at the time the character was meant to be 17 years old, and I definitely don't look 17. And so they're like, maybe if you shaved your beard. I was like, okay. So I shaved my beard for the first time in like 2.5 years, and then put down another audition. Again, bunch of time passed, and all along I wasn't really expecting much, because I don't have any real idea of what the process was at the time, and I assumed with all the weeks going by that I was kind of out of the race. And then I got hit up by the casting director, and he was like, oh, can you come in 2 days time to do a callback audition for the producers of the show, the director of the show. You'll do a read with Lincoln, and you're going to do it in front of John Ibrahim. And I was like, oh, okay, sure, let's do it. And so that was my first auditioning experience. I go in, it went well. It went quite well, because in the scene we're doing like fake sparring, and just, I guess it was the nerves or something like that. But when you're just locked in, sometimes if you're doing a scene like that with another actor, it can get physical if you're doing sparring. So me and Lincoln were in there, and he was like slapping me for real in front of the team, but it just lended a bit more, I guess, authenticity to the scene. And so I felt it went well, because that kind of took my mind out of, I guess, how daunting the whole situation was. And then again, waited probably like a month and a half, and I was packing up gear to go and shoot a podcast up in Queensland, and got a call from the casting director, and he was like, how'd you like to play Michael in Last King of the Cross? And I was like, yeah, I'd like that.